Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a Novel Bunch BookTube channel. That is a sentence. I've just put it together. I am very tired. Please bear with me. My name is Jess. They are Nori. This is Janet. And this is Zoe. And we are 4 out of 5 members of Novel Bunch. Mariette here this week. The pollen count has got a bit much for her, so she's resting. Yes, we are here to discuss a very fabulously gay book. Nori, do the thing.
No.
Oh,
There we go. And we are here
to it the right direction, and it turns out you're not.
We are here to discuss June's book club pick, which is my first pick of the year, which is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins-Reid. We are also going to be doing our randomizer picks for July and August. So, folks, do we want to do that first, or do we want to do that second?
Let's do it now.
Okay, so I need to set up the Wheel of Fortune.
Can we talk about the books while you're setting it up?
Yeah. Who wants to go first?
I don't mind.
Your idea, Janet. You go first.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to suggest it, but sure. So I happen to have it here. City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I kind of, not that I forgot that we were doing this, but like I've just started reading a 700-page book, and then this is also kind of big. So if we read this one, I'm not sure how I'm going to have the time to finish it, but it's fine. So this is a fantasy. They don't work with me. I get distracted and I don't pay attention, so I need to be reading it. But I'm glad that they work for people, and I wish they worked for me. But
alas.
So it's kind of like fantasy, but set in Cairo in the 18th century. I'm going to read the back because I can't actually remember what happens. So in the markets of 18th century Cairo, thieves, tricksters, con artists, and outcasts, it's eke out a living, swindling rich nobles and foreign invaders alike. But alongside this new world, the old stories linger, tales of gin and spirits, of cities hidden among the swirling sounds of the desert, full of enchantment, desire, and riches, where magic pours down every street, hanging in the air like dust. Many wish their lives could be filled with wonder, but not I think it's Nori. I think that's how we say the name. She knows the trades she uses to get by are just tricks and sleights of hand. There's nothing magical about her. She only wishes to one day leave Cairo, but as the saying goes, be careful what you wish for. Ooh.
Nice.
I'm not very good at reading out loud, so apologies if I didn't read any of that right. But anyway, that's that. That's my pick. I've been wanting to read it for a while, so here we go. That's my choice.
Nice.
I'm done now. Next up.
Me?
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
My pick's The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris.
Ooh.
Very cheerful. I actually don't know what this is about other than what the title suggests, so I'm going to read the back too. I just know it's been on my radar and so many people I know have read it, and I think there's a sequel, follow-up.
There's two sequels, I think.
Two. I know the other one's red and white stripes. Anyway, it says heartbreaking. It's a good start. Heartbreaking, human, and inspirational. Oh my gosh. Inspirational. This novel is based on the true story behind one of the most potent symbols of the Holocaust, the blue numbers tattooed on prisoners' arms. When Leil Sokolov, a Slovakian Jew, was given the job of tattooist in Auschwitz, he used his infinitesimal freedom of movement to help keep fellow victims alive. Thank you. If caught, he would have been killed. Many owed him their survival. Terrible though this story is, it is also one of hope, of courage, and of love. Waiting in line to be tattooed was a terrified and shaking young girl. For Leil, it was love at first sight, and he was determined he and Gita would survive. Their story, fact-checked against all available documentary evidence, endorsed by the son they never thought they would have, and untold for over 70 years, will make you weep, but it will also uplift you. For here, in the very worst of circumstances, is the very best of humanity.
Ooh.
I'm sure it's written far better than I just read it, because I clearly don't know how to read English.
Same.
Nori?
I was kind to everyone, and I picked a very short book. It's called The Cat Who Saves Books. It's translated fiction. There's a cat on the cover. Nice.
Oh, it looks like a Juki.
It's a little baby.
It's a little Juki baby.
Where is this Juki baby? I was trying to get it.
I will read the blurb. It's by Sasuke Natsuki. Natsukawa. There we go. So, Natsuki Books is a tiny second-hand bookshop on the edge of town. Inside, towering shelves reach the ceiling, everyone crammed full of wonderful books. Rintaro Natsuki loves the space that his grandfather had created. He spends many happy hours there, reading whatever he liked. It was the perfect refuge for a boy who tended to be something of a recluse. After the death of his grandfather, Rintaro is devastated and alone. It seems he will have to close the shop. Then, a talking tabby cat called Tiger appears and asks Rintaro for help. The cat needs a book lover to join him on a mission. The odd couple will go on 3 magical adventures to save books from people who have imprisoned, mistreated, and betrayed them. Finally, there is one last rescue that Rintaro must attempt alone. It's got magic in it. I didn't know that.
A talking cat?
Yeah, the cat talks. I didn't know the cat would talk.
That's iconic.
I mainly just got it because translated fiction. It's a lovely hardback, and it got a kitty on the cover with books, and it's about cats and books. So, nice. 2 of my top 7 favorite things.
Nice. Also, book club, so it's relevant.
Yes.
Right. Let me just get up Mariette. Sent it through. There it is. Oh, nowhere near as pretty as the one she sent me. I mean, can we just? It's nowhere near as pretty.
Oh no.
The one Mariette sent me for contest. Much prettier.
Yeah.
So it's The Woman Next Door by Yawanda Omotoso. I hope Omotoso. Hortensia James and Marion Agostino are neighbours. One is black, one is white. Both are successful women with impressive careers. Both have recently been widowed, and both are sworn enemies, sharing hedge and hostility, which they prune with a zeal that belies the fact that they are both over 80. But one day, an unforeseen event forces the women together, and gradually the bickering and sniping softens into lively debate, and from there into memories shared. But could these strong connections ever transform into friendship, or is it too late to expect these two to change?
Nice.
Okay. That sounds good. I like that. Is it bad that my brain immediately went to enemies to lovers?
No, that's where my brain went to.
So that's Mariette's. That's the 4th one. The last one is my pick, which is Pandora by Susan Stokes Chapman. I think, Janet, you put this in the group chat and we were all just like, oh my God, this looks amazing. Like, we have to read it.
We both got the Waterstones email, like, this is the next pick.
Yeah.
Okay, Nori, that is
I
gorgeous.
got the signed edition with spray edges.
Beautiful.
You get when you pre-order.
I saw this also. Our friend Darcy has just read it and she loved it. Like, she really, really enjoyed it. So I'm intrigued. Anything that's like Greek myth related. It was very close between this or Ariadne, I have to admit. So Ariadne might be another pick at some point. But here is the blurb for this one. London, 1799. Dora Blake is an aspiring jewellery artist who lives with her uncle in what used to be her parents' famed shop of antiquities. When a mysterious Greek vase is delivered, Dora is intrigued by her uncle's suspicious behaviour and enlists the help of Edward Lawrence, a young antiquarian scholar. Edward sees the ancient vase as a key to unlocking his academic future. Dora sees it as a chance to restore the shop to its former glory and to escape her nefarious uncle. But what Edward discovers about the vase has Dora questioning everything she has believed about her life, her family, and the world as she knows it. As Dora uncovers the truth, she starts to realize that some mysteries are buried and some doors are locked for a reason. Bam, bam, bam. So, I'm going to share the screen. I love that Nori was just like, I want to see it so that I know there's no cheating. I'm like, how are you?
You could record it on your own and then record like 5 different spins until it got your one.
Do you really think I would do that, Nori?
Yes.
I'll film it for the book club Insta. Or
Awesome.
boomerang it at least.
Yeah,
What do we think? Boomerang or video?
I think video it.
All right.
Right, are we ready? So this is the A and B July and August 2022 randomizer. So, City of Brass, The Woman Next Door, The Cat Who Saved Books, The Tattooist of Auschwitz, or Pandora? Which two books will reign supreme? Let's do July's. So, what are we reading in July?
Spin, 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 spin.
Oh, ooh, we got Mariette's pick.
Ooh.
Lovely.
I have to
That's
see if I
another book I need
can
to
find that.
The Woman Next Door. Now, let me see if I've set this up so that it removes that choice. I can't remember if I have, but oh well. If it hasn't, if it lands on that one, we'll just ignore it. Are we ready for the August one?
No.
Spin.
Was that no or yes?
1 sec.
Mhm.
There we go. I thought I heard a no.
I do like the tiny advertisements scrolling across the bottom screen. I wonder what they're for.
Can I get rid of them? No.
All right, it's not going to be the right way up, but we move.
We do.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Awesome. 3, 2, 1. What are we reading in August?
Spin, 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 spin,
This is
spin,
around in the same one.
spin, spin. Keep spinning. No, that book is so big.
We are reading
big.
Grass in August.
It's so big.
Woo! It's like, okay, hang on. It's about 500 and it's less than 550 pages.
So
I
it's
think
shorter
that's
than
3
Aftermath,
times the
then.
size of my book.
It's
Well,
shorter
I'm
than
gonna read all the
Missing
books
Fury, that's all that
anyway.
matters.
Good to know.
Oh, the 2 books
Okay.
that I don't have copies of.
Hmm.
I need to get one.
It's fate. I'm still going to read
you know
these
what we're
3
doing
books in August.
You know what we're doing on Friday then, Nori? Waterstones.
Yep. I've already pre-ordered a book to come to Waterstones because they didn't have it in stock.
Mm.
I pre-ordered one. It was meant to be. It was published on 2 days ago. What, Thursday? So I went in just to ask if they had it, and then they've got problems with delivering or something from the warehouse at the moment. And I was like, I mean, I'm not in a rush, but okay.
What was it?
So I saw that you read The Miniaturist, Nori, recently. I read it ages ago, and I kind of had the similar opinions as you, but I didn't know that there was going to be a sequel. And I was like, well,
sequel.
apparently. So I ordered it. Even though I gave it like a 3 stars when I read it like 7 years ago, whenever I read it. But I want to read it again because I watched the TV show about it. Like they made an adaptation.
Oh.
And I was
The
like,
adaptation is probably better. It probably has better stuff. It's probably not boring as hell.
no, it wasn't. I can't really remember much of the actual book itself. I think the writing style annoyed me when I first read it, so I kind of want to read it again, just out of curiosity. And also because I pre-ordered it.
Anyway, we're getting very distracted.
I mean, it's still book talk. It's relevant.
We're here to talk about this thing, though.
Yes.
So, let's get started. Spoiler-free zone. So, let's do our thoughts and run-throughs. So, for anyone who doesn't know, this is a BookTok, Bookstagram, Book2Net in general, sensation. You cannot go on the internet without seeing The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I kind of get why now. I'll just say that. I picked this as my out of comfort zone pick because it's lit fic, it's historical fiction, it's kind of told like a memoir. It's obviously it's fiction, but it's told in the guise of a memoir, and it's really not my sort of genre. Yes, it's queer, but it's anything but fluffy, which is my usual thing. So I really, really enjoyed this. I'll kick things off. I gave it 4 stars. Really enjoyed it. I have a couple of issues with pacing. That's my main reason I couldn't give it 5 stars was the pacing. But I loved how morally grey every character is. There's no character that I think, apart from one pretty good egg, everybody is morally grey, and I really, really love that. My favourite book of all time is Wuthering Heights. Everybody in that book is just awful. So again, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the way it looked at LGBTQ plus history in the 20th century, and how being famous impacted that. I loved seeing Evelyn come up from like nothing to being this icon, and her relationships and how it balanced between the present and the past as well, like going through her life. So yeah, I enjoyed it. 4 stars. And I will hand off to the rest of the novel bunch. Who wants to go first, Nori or Janet?
I can go first.
Yep, so
Okay.
we've got Nori, then Zoe, then Janet.
I gave it 5 stars. I think it could have been because I listened to it on audio version. I didn't have a physical copy, and sometimes I read along, but it was mainly the audio version, which the voice acting is top notch, and it's like multiple people, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and my review was basically, why do I keep not reading what everyone else is recommending? So I need to stop that because I'm crying and it's amazing. Because I found like when I've finally given in and read a book where everyone's like, you need to read this book, it's amazing. I'm like, fine, I'll read it, and then I find out that everyone else was correct. And that makes me annoyed.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I loved it. It was just really fun.
Mm-hmm. Zoe?
I gave it 4 stars as well. I'm similar to you, Nori, but more sense that even if a film, but if a book, everything's really hyped up, I tend not to read it or watch it. I don't know, partly because of I'm like, well, if everyone's saying to, I'm not going to. But also, I just think if something is so hyped up, your expectations are naturally already high, and then I say maybe 8 out of 10 times you're let down. So I tend to avoid hyped up books. But yes, I was excited to read this one, and I did really, really like it. Again, a couple issues which we'll obviously get into, but that's the point. But no, I thought it was really good. It was so easy to read. I did burn through it quite quickly when I started reading it. And yeah, again, there's a few pacing things and a couple of other issues that I have with it, but it was a really, really good read, and the characters are really I'm looking forward to getting into them and discussing them. So yeah, 4 out of 5.
Janet?
Yeah, also 4 out of 5. Not to repeat what Nori and Zoe have just said, but I also do not always tend to lean towards very popular books or films, etc. It depends how soon I get into like the hype. If I get in early, then yeah, I'll be with the hype. But if it's like if I leave it too late, then I'll be like, no, there's no point. But this one I think I wanted to read because I'd read other Taylor Jenkins-Reid books. Well, one other Taylor Jenkins-Reid book, which was Daisy Jones and the Six. At the end of 2020, I think that was. So I'd been wanting to read more of her stuff anyway. So that's kind of why I didn't consider this one as being part of the hype, because I already knew that I liked the writing style. But it's very different to Daisy Jones because that one's written as an interview. This one is just like kind of normal prose, I guess. So yeah, that aside, I think for me, that just didn't have a 5-star feeling. It felt like there was something missing, or just something, could have been tweaked a little bit. But otherwise, yeah, it's kind of, it was very much the type of book I would read. I think, like Jess, you're saying, it was out of your comfort zone. It was really in mine. And again, I read through it very quickly. I mean, I was on holiday while I was reading it, so the fact I found the time to read it was great. But yeah, recommend. Top tier book things.
Okay.
I don't know if Mariette finished it to know what her rating is. No,
she hasn't said. But to be fair, she's been really struggling with her hay fever. Sure, Janet's also feeling it. I'm actually feeling it really bad in my eyes this year, which is weird. I'm glad it's in my eyes and not in my chest, though. I like being able to breathe. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just sending over my note from my phone to my laptop. Bear with me. And I'm going to share the trigger warnings. Actually, I'll just share them on screen because we've been collecting a list of trigger warnings just in case anybody is thinking of picking this book up and wants to know if there are any triggers. As we were going through it, we were just like, yeah, there's more than we thought. So I'm just waiting for my notes app to bouncing in my dock. Bear with me.
Okay, while you do that, I'm going to put my slow cooker onto low.
So it's still bouncing. It's literally there, just go.
What?
My doc, my notes app. So this is basically the list that we've got. You can see it's sizable. I'm just going to read them off, and I will eventually stick them in the comments. Basically, homophobia, anti-lesbian language, biphobia, suicide ideation and actual suicide depiction, but off pain, cancer diagnoses and deaths from cancer, drink driving, death in general, death by a car accident, lots of blood, domestic abuse, emotional manipulation, cultural erasure, sexual assault of a minor, underage sex, objectifying women, arranged marriage, class A drug use, alcohol abuse, gaslighting, and blackmail.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Literally. So let me just scroll down. So there we go.
I would say that most of these things are handled quite well, though.
Yeah.
If you may or may not agree, but I think they are handled relatively well.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So just ignore that my titles of things here. Can I hide them? No. So yeah, here are the trigger warnings. So I'll leave them up for a little bit. Any more that you guys can think of just before we go into the rest of the discussion?
No, but we can always throw them out there if they come to us as we talk.
Yeah,
that's fair. Right, okie dokie. I'm going to get rid of that. So I haven't really planned too much for this, but I thought that we could kind of just wing it. There are also some book club questions at the back of the edition.
yeah.
So I thought we could use some of those as well, especially some of the less spoilery ones to begin with. So there's that. But I want to start off with, in a spoiler way, in a spoiler-free way, or as spoiler-free as possible, who is your favourite or least favourite husband? I'm intrigued to know. Because my favourite was Harry Cameron. I loved Harry from the moment I met him. I loved him. My least favourite, it's a toss-up now. For the whole duration of the book, it was Don Adler, and then Max Gerard slipped in there at the end with a few of his language choices. So, yeah, those are my favourite and least favourites. What about you? What about you, Steve? Great. I can count.
Good question.
To remind myself who they were.
I do love Harry Cameron. And last husband as well, whose first name escapes me, St. James.
Robert. It's Jameson, and it's Robert Jameson.
Yeah. I read this at the beginning of the month, and I don't have my name, so
yeah, Robert Jameson.
I will be forgetting names left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
Also, question for Janet, because you've read Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yes.
Does Evelyn's third husband, is he one of the characters that just sort of like pops up in Daisy Jones and the Six, or am I just going insane?
Is that Mick River?
Yeah.
And not that I remember, but I do know that he's in Malibu Rising, so it's about his family. And Evelyn makes an appearance in that, but I haven't read it. That's just what I've heard from someone else.
Like, I remember,
maybe, but I can't remember.
Spoilers for Daisy Jones and the Six, but he's like, there's an older guy at a party with lots of younger people, and he's giving out all like the drugs and stuff, and he's like an older type guy. I'm like, Is that guy? I can't remember anyone's name.
I can't remember. I literally don't remember what Mick Reaver, who he was. Oh, I remember.
The one night
The
stand.
Vegas. Yeah. All right, I'm there.
Vegas husband.
Vegas.
Yep.
I'm trying to. I'm slotting.
He's also like out of all of them, he's one of the better husbands.
Yeah, because it's literally less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
I also liked how that chapter was written, like that whole section. I thought it was pretty
That is
cool.
going to be one of my talking points, so
Yeah.
put a pin in it for later.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I had a favorite or least favorite. Like, kind of agree with Harry and
yeah.
what's his name?
Who was your least favorite? Sorry.
I
I just realised you didn't say. Sorry, Janet, to cut you off.
Still a toss-up between Don and Mark Gerard. But, like,
Yeah,
it's
Gerard,
at different points of time that they're, like... Because at first it's, like, Don, but then he, like, evolves later on. But Mark Gerard is, like... I think he was always like that. It's just you didn't get close enough to him.
Mm,
So he might be...
worse.
Janet?
Oh.
Yeah. I kind of agree. Like, yeah, kind of given... I was going to say given the time period, like Don, you know, like you can almost expect him to act like that, if that makes sense. But it shouldn't happen. But
It's
also,
still
yeah.
unforgivable. I'm not forgiving Don's actions.
Yeah.
I'm just doing the poll in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same, to be honest, with least favorites between the two of them. Probably on equal levels because, you know, they're both a bit...
for very different reasons.
Yeah.
So?
I'll be controversial actually. I agree with the least favourites, Max or Don. Although, without being spoilery, the latter side of Don, in some ways, not balances him out, but redeems him a little bit, maybe not massively,
Yeah.
and it's not forgiving.
Yeah.
But he does have a redemption. So I think Max and the Mick, because Mick was like, they're both glory hunters, and I think so maybe those two. But my favourite would probably be a tie. Again, Harry's just kind of like Harry, but I actually thought Rex North was probably quite one that you don't really, you kind of risks going under the radar a little bit, because their marriage is so understanding, and he kind of he tests his boundaries, but he respects the responses, and they're very honest with each other, and they work so well together. And when their marriage comes to an end, obviously for the reasons we won't talk about yet, but I think and like their relationship post their marriage as well, I think he's just it's a shame that it wasn't a romantic marriage actually, or
which one was
a
Rex?
bit of a spoiler.
He was like the blonde actor man, wasn't he?
Blonde actor, yeah, who played the Count in some sort of vampire. Dracula.
No, it's Anna Karenina.
Anna Karenina plays the Count in that.
Which number was he? Because he has completely slipped my mind.
He was 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth husband.
So
after
pre Harry Cameron.
Pre-Harry. The next one was
Harry was the next one. No.
Yeah.
Max was
my brain was like, I don't remember him after Harry, and that's because he's before.
Yeah.
Where is Harry's chapter?
Harry's quite far into it. He's one of the last ones.
Yeah, I think Harry's number 5.
Why can't I find his chapter?
Yeah, Harry's 5.
I really should have tabbed these. Oh, there he is. Found him.
We should have like one of those tier lists of like S tier, A tier, B tier.
Yeah.
How convenient. There are some tabs by my computer. So yeah, I would say that I'm quite looking forward to discussing that marriage actually, if we do. But yeah, Rex. I think Rex is probably up there with, just to be different, because Harry is obviously like elite. But I quite liked Rex and their relationship. That was quite a nice one.
Yeah, I agree. He was one I was thinking of as well. Actually, I couldn't remember his name, but I was like, I quite liked, like you said, Zoe, the sort of respect they have for each other, and it just kind of worked.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find where they list all the husbands at one point.
Probably right at the beginning when she's done the research. She's doing the research for
Yeah, is it before she meets Evelyn or when she meets Evelyn?
It's just before she meets Evelyn. I was looking at that chapter this morning. It's
right at the end of a chapter, isn't it?
It is.
Is it one of those weird little news sections?
It's we're so good at this.
We're just trying to figure, like, sort of say, oh, who's the love of Evelyn's life? Which
no, it's the beginning of chapter 2. I've spent the past few days researching everything I can about Evelyn. Then there's the early marriage, then Dawn, then so it's chapter 2, so it's page 13. They do talk about it there.
Aha. Yeah. So the early marriage that ended in divorce when she was 18. That is
Ernie Diaz.
Then Don Adler, Mick Reaver, Rex North, Harry Cameron, Max Gerard, and Robert Jameson. That's 7, right?
I think so.
Yeah. There's so many men.
I do like. If we're giving out awards, the Sweet Bean Award goes to Robert Jameson.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sweet bean.
He is. Is that the good egg you were talking about, Jess?
No, I was talking about Harry Cameron.
Oh yeah, but he's not perfect either, is he?
No, I know he's not perfect, but
yes, you're right.
One is. He does receive the good egg award in my books.
Yes.
Okay.
Good egg, but not a sweet bean.
Yeah.
Distinction.
Sweet bean is.
Welcome to my TED Talk. We will talk about such.
Following on from like your favorite husband and things like that, are there any standout characters, anyone at all, like any character that you absolutely loved or you absolutely hated? Like go in the middle, like who did you love and who did you hate? I'm just intrigued to see where you all land. Because I at times both loved and loathed Celia and Evelyn.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's just like it shows how well written these characters are. They can be both the worst and the best of humanity in so many ways. Because it's not a secret that this book is bisexual and it's sapphic in its romance. Like that is just like the selling points. And I love how Evelyn is willing to do anything, and I mean literally anything, to protect the woman she loves. But at the same time, she's doing something that is really hurting the love of her life. And it's just that balancing act that she cannot quite seem to find. And how her love interest is just so strong-willed and so single-minded, and that she is also far from perfect. She's spoiled, she's stubborn, she refuses to compromise, and in this industry you need to learn to compromise. So those two definitely were like standout characters for me. Harry, because he's such a good bean, a good egg, and I did like Don by the end of it because I loathed him to begin with, and then I started to understand him a bit more, and he did become quite a sad character, and I did start to not feel sorry for him, but and not condone what he did. But it was just interesting to see him have that semi-redemption arc. So
what was the name of Celia's husband? Because he was
John Braverman.
Yeah, he was the shining light of that quartet. He was too good for any of it.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice to have seen more of him, actually.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I really had a favorite character as such.
No, I didn't.
There's so many characters, to be honest. But I don't know if I could pick one as a favorite.
not saying like necessarily favourites. It's ones that kind of stick in your head. I wouldn't really say that any of these are like my favourite characters. Like I would protect them, maybe Harry. But yeah.
I
didn't
remember
love any of them.
disliking Monique's editor.
Frankie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
she's a bit of a
remember not
pain.
enjoying that character, just going, "What? You're just being mean. Stop being mean." I don't like mean people.
Yeah.
I didn't love any of them. I didn't like Celia, really. Evelyn was a little bit hit and miss. I think I liked her more than I didn't like her. I think she's kind of just brutally honest, and she's just, that's just kind of the way it is. I'm not saying that everything she did was justifiable, but I didn't like Celia. I don't think there was really one moment that I liked her. I didn't. Monique's parents I quite like. And Grace and Louisa. All these sideline characters that deal with the drama. For sure. And obviously like Harry's really likable too, but there were none that I particularly liked. Celia I just remember not liking. Ruby.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, there weren't really any that stuck with me. I just remember not liking Celia.
Yeah, same.
I think the whole point with like these characters is that they're not meant to be loved. They're not meant to be like these characters that you want to protect. Like I have so many characters that are just like, these are my precious beans I must protect.
Nick and Charlie.
Also Nori will agree with me on this, probably. Baz needs to be protected.
I think Baz can protect itself.
Yeah, he's also got a dragon with him, but that's the point. So like with these characters, they are meant to be Marmite, and they are meant to rub you up the wrong way, and also maybe not necessarily earn like your respect and your love for them or your forgiveness of their actions. So I think that what Taylor Jenkins-Reid has done here is create some really like human characters. They are so realistic. Like they fuck up in just the most realistic ways, and she's not letting them get away with it. She makes them suffer for it, and I think it's refreshing to see that there isn't like an easy out, and these characters have to suffer with the consequences of their actions, and more often than not they have to suffer with the consequences of one woman's actions. And it's so interesting to watch. And while Celia can't, like, he has all these spats with Evelyn, and they can't be together a lot of the time. They can't be apart from each other. I think it's a very realistic depiction of a very difficult relationship, especially given the time period and where these women stand in society. They are Oscar winners. They are family names. They are household names. They are well-known people. Like, they are huge celebrities in the golden age of cinema. And we think like the cult of celebrity is bad now. Like, it was just as bad in the 60s and things like that. So yeah, it's especially as well, it's a period of huge social change, and you've got this Cuban woman who is coming up from nothing, has completely remade herself into an American household name, who is secretly hiding that she is bisexual, and it's just, there's a lot there that can make a character stronger and more resilient and a typical hero in a book, but there's also a lot that will make some really bad decisions. And I like that Taylor Jenkins-Reid went with that route and went with that option and allowed her to make mistakes.
I think that's what she does well. It's the same in Daisy Jones. If you read it, I highly recommend it. It is one of my top 5 favorite books of all time. I'm going to put it up there. It's the same. It feels very real, and like it's about musicians rather than actors, but it's the same idea. Like, you know, in the 70s, like that kind of rock star lifestyle, they make mistakes, no one's perfect, etc., etc. So yeah, I agree with that. I think that's one of the reasons why I like Taylor Jenkins-Reid, our Lord and Savior.
And I think it comes back to that like cult personality as well. So like building up this idea that you are perfect rather than letting people see how messy you actually are. It's a trick that like world leaders have used, and like Roman emperors, for example, used it a lot, this cult of personality, and we still see it a lot in leadership, like hiding things that would make people question you and see you in a different light. And it's very, very similar in this like cult of celebrity. So yeah, it's fascinating, like the psychology of fandoms and fans and things like that. How quickly like that they can take everything away from you. So yeah. I don't know how that got on from any standout characters, but that's what we ended.
I thought of another standout character, but they're quite spoilery. I just remember them, and it sort of sticks with me. Is the unnamed person who helps Evelyn after the accident, and then it's like, what do you want? And they know instantly what they want.
I mean, you can say like, yeah. So Nick is one of these characters that literally turns up for 10 pages and then is gone. But yeah, shockwaves in his wake.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's see, what else is not spoilery?
Well, we have already been live for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So we've done well.
Let's just go into spoilers. I think we can do that now. So, welcome to the spoiler zone, people. If you haven't read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, you might want to tune out. So
we suggest you do.
We talked about Mick Reaver earlier, and this is definitely the part that I kind of remember this happening the most. I know it happened again throughout, but the story is told largely in first person present tense from when it's Monique's point of view. But I look at Evelyn Hugo, she looks at me, sort of thing. Then it switches to first person, past tense, when Evelyn's telling her story. So I looked at this, I did this. But there is also a little bit when she's with Mick Reaver that it switches into present tense, second person. When you do this, when you do that. And
oh yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
because it's, for me, it feels like she's massively dissociating from the situation. She doesn't want to be there. She is only doing it because she thought it was the only way to get the paparazzi off of her back with her and Celia, and it was to help them live a quiet life together. And Celia just could not handle it. And I just wanted to discuss all of that. So
I was going to say, to add on to that, I agree with the dissociating thing, but also I think it's like, for me, it kind of suggests like that's what you do as a celebrity, at least in that era. It's like you just do these things to like get the press off you. So when you I'm doing it now, when you do something to like it's like almost relatable within a group of people in a way. And I feel like that's kind of what it's suggesting. Is like there are a lot of these stories that you see in the press about all these celebrities, but they know exactly what they're doing. And they're playing with the press because they want a certain story to be told. So I think that is also part of it as well. But,
it's very mechanically written, isn't it? It's like it's kind of like a set of instructions.
It's the whole of chapter 28, basically, bar one paragraph at the beginning, which is describing what she looked like. Says, I wore a cream-colored cocktail dress with heavy gold beading and a plunging neckline. I pulled my long blonde hair into a high ponytail. I wore diamond earrings. I glowed. Then it switches. And it literally is, like you say, a step-by-step guide to manipulating this person, manipulating the press, getting what you want, not enjoying it, and just going through the motions so you can get through a rough situation that you do not want to be in. Because there's some horrific things in here. Like, for instance, he won't wear protection, so there's the risk of and then happening the unwanted
There's
pregnancy.
a trigger warning.
There you go. Non-consensual protection and things like that.
And abortion, which is topical.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, yeah. And it's just so sad because you can really feel her dissociating throughout the whole scene, and then it is 2 a.m. and you are tired, you miss the love of your life, you want to go home, you would rather be with her in bed, hearing the light buzz of her snoring, watching her sleep than be here. There is nothing about here that you love. And it's just, my heart broke throughout this whole chapter, and I was just reading it and I was just like, oh my God, this is awful. And as soon as I read the bit that was just like, and he won't wear a condom, I was just like, oh, I know where this is going to end. And it's just so sad. And then when they wake up in the morning and he is the one doing the gaslighting and the manipulating, and she just has to go along with it and play the woman and be one that feels like she's acting like she's emotionally scorned and things like this. And there's the quote, "You wonder what it must be like to be a man, to be so confident that the final say is yours." That hit so hard. And yeah, she plays like the hysterical woman. He ducks out of the room and you start crying, and then he's gone, and you stop and you think, if only they gave out Oscars for this shit. Like, oh my God, Evelyn went through it in that 24 hours. And I just want to like about the writing choices that Taylor Jenkins-Reid made in that situation.
I adore that chapter. It's like, from what I found out recently, I love when a book is not written in like traditional prose in a sense. And the whole of Evelyn Hugo switches like the tenses, but that chapter in particular just like it just goes, it's just so satisfying to read. And, like, it's just like one of those ones that's like, yes, this is top-notch writing. This is like this is what the level I want to be at one day. It's like, mwah, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
I think the fact as well that like Marilyn, wrong famous blonde. I can see the comparisons. Evelyn is like in complete control right until the end, isn't she? She's like, and what's sad as well is that she knows exactly what he's going to do and his reactions and his responses and his everything that he says. She pretty much navigates the whole thing knowing exactly what he's going to say and what he's going to do. And she's proven right. And then what you were saying, Jess, about like the end, it's the fact that then he thinks, so it finishes with him thinking that he's got control over the situation. And it's like, actually, she's just steered you to this position, but then obviously she has to let it feel like that he's in charge of the situation. And he's like, it's like you say, it's his last bit, it's his last say. You know, even it's quite sad that he's made her to feel like she's a sad little woman that has no control over a situation, doesn't know what to do, and she can't even control her emotions, when actually she's just played him you know, past go and collected $200. It's so meticulously done. It's I think the fact that it's in Vegas as well is quite juxtaposing to the fact that Vegas is so, there are no rules and regulations or structure. It's a city of sin, and it's very wild, and I suppose their actions are wild, but it's such a calculated, cold chapter. It's like another notch on the bedpost, both literally and figuratively.
Both of them.
It's such a calculating in a good way, but not a good way. And it's sad that the man has to come away feeling like, I mean, I suppose there's the dramatic irony in the sense that we know that that's not the case, and we're like, Max, you think you know it all, or Mick, whatever his name is. Mick, you think you know it all, and actually he doesn't. But I think Nori's right. It's such a well-written chapter in such a short way, because it's so different. The fact that she's brave, Jenkins-Reid is so kind of brave to completely do a dynamic shift, directional shift with narrative right in the middle of the book, and it pays off so well. Tis a good chapter.
There are a couple of other things that I don't know whether they popped up earlier, but I definitely noticed them like repeating constantly near the end of the book that I wanted to talk about. Again, like definitely a writer's choice, and goes back to that craft of writing. When she's talking about the devastating luxury of panic overtaking her, it repeats at least twice. and that's when Celia dies, when
Harry.
when Connor dies, and when Harry dies. So
Yeah.
the three most important people in her life. There is that quote, and I think I only tabbed it on the latter two, but it starts with Harry, and then it's with Celia, and then it's with Connor, and it's just heartbreaking. Like, I love when you get repetition in books like that, and especially when they come in threes like that. It's just so satisfying as a writer and as a reader to read. But you really feel the emotional sucker punch, because Evelyn isn't someone who engages in panic. She is so meticulously planned, and when we compare it to her thing with Mick Reba, which is planned to the letter, what she's going to do, what he's going to do, she knows everything. And then these three tragedies strike, and she just lets panic overtake her. It's just heartbreaking.
Mhm.
Do you guys have anything to add to that?
The only thing I was going to add is obviously it ends in an unwanted pregnancy, which is obviously not planned or was not part of the plan. But I thought it was quite interesting when she talks about it to Celia, or with Celia, and tells her that she's pregnant. And then that's when Celia's like, hang on, what? Because obviously it's not mine. And it's interesting, like, I think that's when it's an example of seeing sort of Evelyn for, not for who she is, but like, you know, for someone who's so planned, that's one vital part of her plan that she didn't share, and she just was kind of like something like, I assumed that was implied, or something like that. So it just shows, like,
Celia knew they were going to sleep together, didn't she?
No.
No, I don't think Evelyn explicitly
she didn't.
said.
No.
I think it's more just like, we're going to get married, and then, or like, we're just going to have a, I don't know. She didn't say, I'm going to sleep with him.
Yeah, because she says, what, you slept with him? And she's like, I thought that was implied. And then the shattering of the glass in the pool, which is a massive inconvenience.
Yeah, and then so it's kind of like,
that pool is going to need to be drained and skimmed.
Yeah, so although she's got everything planned to a T, in her communication with her own partner, the person she's trying to save, that whole part was obviously not part of the plan, because she was like, well, I was doing this for you. And then Celia's like, well, yeah, but talk to me about actually what you're going to do, you know? So it's an interesting, like, shift, I think. But yeah.
Definitely.
Anyway.
Awesome. So?
Yes?
Anything to add?
No, I think the fact that even when we know she's pregnant and she goes and has the when she does go to, was it Mexico she goes to have the abortion?
Yeah, New Mexico.
Yeah.
She goes to Mexico to have the abortion, and it doesn't get touched upon very long. We just know that it happens. And she discusses with Harry about the fact that Celia called her a whore, and it's like, it's really sad, because I mean, a whore isn't a nice word anyway. And it's the fact that she's gone through this meticulously well thought out thing. She's done it all for the benefit of Celia and her relationship. And then she still comes out. She comes out being called a whore by the woman she loves, but incidentally not by the guy that she's just had a one-night marriage with. He's actually kind of respectful to her in a weird way. I mean, he's not, but you know, he says, "Don't worry, baby, we'll get it. We'll get it annulled. You don't have to worry about a thing. I'll look after you because I'm the man." You know. Whereas, you know, she goes all through that, and then she ends up getting called a whore by Celia when she's left Vegas, and is it's quite an interesting turn, because the fact that she does it all, what she doesn't want to do, she ends up in horrendous kind of consequences for it, and she still gets called a whore, but by the woman that she was doing it for. So that's really sad. I just don't like Celia.
That's the first time Celia leaves. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Not the last, but definitely the first. That leads me, that's a very nice segue actually into my next point, which is thoughts on Celia. She's morally grey, like Evelyn. She's spoiled, she's selfish. What are your thoughts on her as the main love interest? Because Evelyn admits that she doesn't love most of her husbands. The only men that she has ever loved. So she loved Don in the beginning, and then obviously he was abusive, emotionally and physically. She loved Harry, but in a familial friend way. And then she loved Max Gerard, she thought, to begin with, and then he was Max Gerard. So, thoughts on Celia as her main love interest, and possibly what you think it says about Evelyn as a person? Like, is there anything you think you could draw from that? I personally think she has terrible taste in people.
It's like a scorpion and a tarantula falling in love. They're both venomous. They're both not good for each other, but you can't fault them. They're both terrible together and apart. So you might as well trap them in the same box and throw them out the same window. That's my method for dealing with scorpions and spiders, if you want to know.
Thank you.
The window is out of a moving train.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
They do seem like destined for each other, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think... I think a lot of it, obviously, it's given, you know, the time that it was set is very important. And I think had it been set in the modern day, obviously this would not be such, well, it might be still a problem. Some people can still be problematic even today, no matter who they are. But I think obviously that's meant to play a big part, and that's meant to be like the main obstacle is like people's opinions about them. And I think they let, obviously working in film, opinions matter, especially in the 50s and 60s and so on. So I think that's kind of like was the main problem that they had, was that everything was so secretive, and that it had to be, but yeah, so I think that's why, you know, maybe if it was someone who, like, I think at one point one of them mentions, like, when they first talk about going to Spain or somewhere, like, can we just be like anonymous, and that kind of works at the end for them, like they can just be who they are, and it's kind of like this whole idea of, you know, what will the papers think rather than what do we think. I think that's kind of part of the problem for them specifically. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't hate Celia, but I don't love her. You know, she's one of those like, okay, that's just who she is in a way.
But Spain, they still have to like cover up that they're together with Evelyn marrying Celia's brother.
Yeah.
Big Bean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it wasn't legal in Europe. Well, in the Netherlands were the first place in the world to make it legal.
Yeah.
And that wasn't for a while yet. So yeah, there was no chance of them legally being able to be together and things like that. And we all know how backward America is now, let alone 40 years ago in the 80s.
Yeah.
So yeah. Zoe, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts.
I didn't like Celia at all. I didn't hate her because I didn't really hate any character in this. I didn't feel strongly enough about any of them. But I think that ties into what you said at the beginning, Jess, about how they're all it's just such a realistic book, and I don't hate anybody. So in real world.
You can vouch for this.
So I mean, I have lesser feelings for some people, but I don't hate anybody. And I think so for me, I'm like, I don't know Celia, I can't hate her, but I didn't like her as a character. I found her manipulative, and I found the fact that there are these sly little comments that, well, Evelyn says, that's like, she never accepts me as bisexual. You know, she always she always says this, and it's like, well, you're obviously aware of these manipulative character traits about her, and you know, and she's always the one to leave. And because what she only leaves twice, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Twice? She leaves twice. And I'm like, she's always the one to leave, and then she won't, you know, accept calls or answers or anything. She's like, well, you could have come after me. It's like, well, you could have gone back.
Yeah.
You know, it's
goes both ways.
Yeah, you can't put it all on Evelyn, you know, and everything that she's done has kind of catapulted Celia in a way because of their initial meeting at wherever they went for milkshakes. And I just feel like, I'm not saying Evelyn's perfect in any sense of the word, because she's flawed. She makes mistakes too, but I just personally, I think that Celia is worse. I just think that everything's kind of, she does it and she shoots Evelyn down in every scenario.
Yeah.
And she always puts her in uncomfortable positions and scenarios, and then, you know, somehow manages to blame Evelyn for it. And I think I don't think, you know, I think they're a flawed relationship. I think that's kind of normal. But, you know, even when she has Connor, she's kind of dismissive of Connor in a way as well. And it's like, you say you want Evelyn to be happy and have everything. And it's like, but you're now making her feel bad about wanting a child. It's like, it's not that she wouldn't have a child with you. It's just, unfortunately, biologically, it's not possible for the two women to have the child. And, you know, I think, I don't know, I just didn't like her. I thought she was a bit snaky and a bit toxic.
I think it shows, like, because they reference like Celia's upbringing from like rich family in Virginia or something like that. So I think that definitely comes into it. You know, she's had it much easier than Evelyn's had, so she's not really aware of, maybe she, you know, I'm sure Evelyn said like, this is what happened to me and blah blah blah. So, but she's probably not aware of the reality of what Evelyn's gone through, and I think that's, maybe she's quite immature. I think that's part of the problem, is compared to Evelyn. You know, Evelyn had to grow up quite quickly, whereas I feel like Celia hasn't had to have that sort of experience. I think in film you probably do have to, you know, generally grow up quite quickly in a lot of ways, but in comparison,
it's definitely. No, you go, Jess.
I was just going to say she had the money to back her to get where she was, which is why she got into that. Like, Little Women was her break, and which one is it that dies? I've never read Little Women. Beth. That's when she got the role of Beth, because she had the money to back her into that role, and we know money is like the main
money
thing.
Talks.
In this industry, and so someone who crafted and worked so hard to get to the top, like Evelyn, would be dropped for someone who could pay through the nose to get the person in. So,
I think the latter half of your question, Jess, because obviously I didn't rate Celia as a character for various reasons, but I think one of the, as a love interest, I think it's quite interesting, because I went into this book, one of the reasons, this was one of the issues I had with it, but at the same time the end of the book kind of irons that out a little bit for me, so bear with. But I think I looked at the title of the book, and obviously it was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I think in my head I get it, and I understand now. Like, you read the end of it, and Monique says, "I'm calling it The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo because of this, this, and this." But I think I was expecting maybe a story more about the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Like, I kind of was expecting to read about a heartbroken woman that falls in love 7 times and gets her heart broken because they use and abuse her for her fame, or, you know, I just felt like it was kind of, and I think that ties in with the pacing issue, that it's like Taylor Jenkins-Reid has decided, there's going to be 7, so I've somehow got to get 7 husbands in there. And it's like, and I understand, or I don't understand because I'm not famous, but there's the whole that industry, and you sometimes do have to fake a marriage for a PR stunt, that kind of stuff, which I just think is ridiculous. But that's what you have to do. So I think it's quite a eye-opening insight into what we can only imagine is the famous industry. But I think I was expecting it to be a little bit more about her life and her 7 marriages, as opposed to the fact that it just seemed to be a bit of a brush over. It's like, well, if you wanted the book to be about Celia and her relationship, which I think it's really, I think so, the stuff they have to go through to hide who they are is just devastating. And it's just, maybe that could have been not played on more, because it was quite ample in the book, but I just feel like she was kind of fighting 2 stories in this. It's like the 7 husbands, make it about the 7 husbands, not, I don't know, do you know what I mean? I can't verbalize what I'm trying to say.
You see where you're coming from, that the title is misleading, like with the binding as well. But I would counter argue with that, because obviously, like, I saw this all over Bookstagram and BookTok and things like that, and everyone was saying that it's like queer and there's queer rep and things like that. So I knew going in. I've also got like a fan art scene that has a fan art of Celia and Evelyn in it. So obviously I knew the couple going in, but I knew it was sapphic, and I knew it was going to be about like these 7 marriages, and also about hiding who she really was. I knew that into it, so like I get that, like, because it's called The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but at the same time, would you want something? I'm trying to think of a good book that's got a twist in it. The title misleads you. You don't want like things to be spelled out to you necessarily in the title. Janet?
I have a point. Sorry, just before I forget. Aren't there 7 deadly sins?
Yes.
That could be why there's 7.
Oh my gosh! It's
Oh,
like
let's
a Night
decide.
All Blooded Black with the 7 hands. Oh,
So yeah, with like, we'll come back to the 7 deadly sins, but I'm just trying to think of, like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but you don't necessarily want a title to spell out everything that a book is going to entail. So if it was called like Celia and I or something like that, that gives it away that it's going to be about this sapphic love story, rather than the truth behind this woman's scandalous life, which turns out was scandalous, but for very different reasons. And I think it's a good misdirect. I really think
it's meant to be shocking as well, isn't it? Because you'll look at the title. I mean, it's like in the book itself, like the news articles and like things like that. It's like, oh, why does she have 7 husbands? Oh, okay, let's have a look. I think, that's probably, it's more of a selling point, I guess.
Yeah,
it's quite ironic. So I think, well, at the end of the book, she's obviously, there's the bit where Monique's written Evelyn and me, and she says, I settled on that title, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because I once asked her if she was embarrassed about having been married so many times. I said, doesn't it bother you that your husbands have become such a headline story, so often mentioned that they have nearly eclipsed your work and yourself? That all anyone ever talks about when they talk about you are the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And her answer was quintessential Evelyn. No, she told me, but bless you, because they are just husbands. I am Evelyn Hugo. And anyway, I think once people know the truth, they'll be much more interested in my wife. And I think it's so powerful because obviously the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is kind of, it's just a paintbrush for who she is, which I think that's why I kind of teetered with my issue with it, because it makes sense. If anything, it proves its point, because I was like, oh, it's going to be a book about her husbands, and I want to know all about why she was married 7 times and blah 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 blah.
It does also say in the synopsis on the back that there was a great forbidden love, and one of the blurbs on mine, Emily Giffin, says a spellbinding novel about love, glamour, and the price of fame. So you can kind of infer that it's not going to all be about like the 7 husbands from that. But yeah, Nori.
That's something that like I see in like modern culture as well, when like a man is very famous and he also has a wife in the industry, or she's also quite well known. It's usually like sort of like Ryan Reynolds' wife, even though she has I'm blanking on her name, which is terrible of me.
Blake Lively.
Blake Lively is also an incredible actress in her own right, but it's always like this man's wife, or it's like this woman this is her husband. So it's like the daughter of this man, or the sister of this man.
I guess in a lot of
cousin twice removed of this man.
I guess in a lot of tabloids they tend to be more like first name and first name. Like there won't be like husband or wife of, they'll be like first name basis almost. But like I don't think there's a problem with that. Maybe in more newspapers and things, I guess if we're talking in the real world anyway, they should be like Blake and Riot, or whoever the couple is. I mean, maybe they do sometimes, but I guess an example was like, wasn't it George Clooney and his wife? I can't remember her name. Amal? Is that her name?
Yes.
Anyway, top-notch lawyer. But I think there was something about them, and it was the same thing. It's like, why can't people just say her name? Or like, anyway, it's a problem.
Yeah.
But
it's always like a storyline, isn't it? It's like, oh, George Clooney's married a girl from the ghetto. It's like, why? Because she's not famous. She's like an amazing woman. She's absolutely top tier human, and just because she's not a famous celebrity, she's not worth having her name said. So I understand what you mean there.
Kind of following on from like our general dislike of Celia, I can probably say that. I just wanted to talk about like their relationship a little bit. So I've gotten my note in here. thoughts on how her and Evelyn are together, how they burn passionately and then go down in flames, not once but twice, because they do in a lot of ways. Like they go down kicking and screaming, and they break apart so dramatically, and then come back together, and it is just like an immediate rekindling of the fire. And yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on that. And then third one is a lot calmer when they come back together, and obviously it's the final time that they are together, and in the end Celia is dying of emphysema. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to get your take on it. So yeah, literally. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think like with the sort of fire analogy, if we will, I guess, well, okay, no, maybe not, but I think it is kind of linking back to what I said, like at the beginning, especially Celia is so immature, and I think she needed the time to mature. So in the breaks between their relationship, I guess, I think, I don't know. Why did they break up the second time? I can't remember now. Was that
the movie with Dawn, and she did the sex scene, and she actually did sex on camera.
It wasn't actual sex though,
but very realistic. Okay.
And she asked Celia if she could do it, having already done it, and Celia said no, I don't feel comfortable. And Evelyn's like, well, shit, I've already done it. What you got to do about it?
I think I can understand Celia's point of view, to be honest. Like if I was her and my partner had said, how do you feel? Oh, okay, I already did it. Haha. Or like, you know, oh, I slept with a guy, but it's, you know, I still love you sort of thing. I think I would react in the same way as Celia. So although I think she is quite immature at the beginning, especially, I don't blame her for leaving. I would do the same, to be honest. But I do think she does, you know, with time apart and with like age and, you know, especially in the final time that they come back together, I think that is why they're so calm, because like, I guess they've had enough time to realize actually like what's important to them and how not to do things. I think on both sides. I don't know. I think that's what I was going to say, but
Zoe?
Yeah, I agree. They're both actresses, you know. Everything's very dramatic.
Everything's fake. Everything's dramatic.
Everything's dramatic. I just think there's they always come back in kind of like a collision course, don't they? But at the same time, it's always Celia that leaves, but it's always Evelyn that goes back to her. Like she's considering, she's like, you're trying to hide everything from us. It's like, okay, well, you just broke up, you left her and disappeared for 10 years, and then you're like, well, you can't do this to me again. I've spent years getting over you twice. And I'm like, well, you left her both times. And then see, Nori, go. I feel like
there is the bit where Celia's like, she makes that sort of declaration in her Oscars speech, but then doesn't, like, she's like, I did reach out. Didn't you not hear my Oscars speech? It's like, of course you heard the Oscars speech, but like after that you need like to make sort of like take another step, like at least 2 steps. She's running the extra mile towards you. Just another step would be fun.
Building bridges.
The Oscar speech was adorable.
Yeah, I think it's just a constant. I think they're. I just kind of felt like their relation. I never kind of felt the kind of harmonious love between the two of them. I mean, it was clearly there, but I think it was such a passion and desire thing as well as. I mean, they clearly loved each other. Don't get me wrong, and I think it's so sad that they couldn't just be them and just be like, and you know, then it wouldn't have been the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, would it? It would have just been the great love of Evelyn Hugo. And I think it is sad, but I just don't think I was rooting for them, which I think is quite, and like for no other reason than the fact that I just didn't connect with their story and I didn't like Celia. It was nothing. There's no other reason. I think if Celia was a guy and they had the same relationship, I wouldn't be rooting for them. Like it, I just didn't. Their balance didn't really. I don't know. I didn't really buy it.
I think
obviously I don't. I'm not saying it's not there.
I actually kind of feel the same way, because like I was rooting for Evelyn to be happy.
Yeah.
But that relationship wasn't like the thing I was going, yeah.
Yeah. See, this is my thing with literary fiction, is that I don't ever root for a character. I'm just kind of following them along on their life story. I can't get invested as much as I do with, say, like fantasy or something that's very plot driven. I find that I get more invested in character when less's focus is on the character. It's really weird. But I just didn't feel invested in the relationship. I think the relationship I felt most invested in was Evelyn and Harry, because that may just be my aromantic side, but I loved the friendship that they had, and I loved how they supported each other. And yes, it was not a romantic attraction between them, and they were doing it purely for like career benefits and things like that, and because they couldn't be openly with who they really loved. Harry couldn't be with John, and Evelyn couldn't be with Celia on the street like together. And it is, again, a marriage of convenience, but they do love each other as family and as friends. And I think that was like the most real relationship for me personally, anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why it broke me so much when it did break down. That's what I was most sad about. And then obviously Harry's end being he died in a car crash, drink driving, and that was how Monique is connected to Evelyn, which we're in the spoiler zone, so I can talk about it, because
that was a twist.
Yeah,
that was.
I sort of suspect it when we were told that you didn't hear the name of the man. I was just like, hang on. So it took me a whole month to read this book, so I forgot that her dad died in a car accident.
Yeah, so did I.
But yeah, the fact that the man who is,
bless you,
miraculously not like seen on page until he's literally a body in a car, is just like kept out of sight of the reader just until Evelyn can go, yeah, no, this is from the body. It was your dad with the letter, sort of thing. I felt that was a little bit hokey. I have to admit, that's one of the reasons I didn't give it.
I think I'm the same. There's something about it. I feel like I don't know. Not that the way it was done was bad, but I think I would have liked it to have been different. But I don't know how I would want it to be different.
There was so much build up, and I was just like, it keeps building up. It's like, you will hate me by the end of the week. You will hate me
exactly.
I think would hate Evelyn by the end of the week, and I was just like, if this had come in 100 pages earlier, and we could have seen Monique getting used to the idea and coming to terms with it, and not maybe forgiving Evelyn, but just making peace with it somehow, rather than just being this bed of anger in like
I think it would have benefited without Evelyn saying, you're going to hate me, because I was then, not that this was bad. This was bad. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, this situation was bad. But I was expecting, like, 10 times worse almost. Not that what happened wasn't bad, but I don't know. It was like, I was escalating in my head.
I figured it was going to be something like Evelyn had him killed because he was a photographer.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah,
I thought so. She was directly involved somehow, which she wasn't really. Like, yes, to an extent, but
no,
he wasn't perverting the cause of justice.
But for me, like that sort of whole thing with Monique's dad, whose name I can't remember.
James.
Yeah.
But that thing is the reason that like Harry Cameron for me isn't like all sunshine greatness. Because of what he asks James to do for him. It's like, oh yeah, just leave your wife, marry this woman, and then I can remarry the woman I was married to. Then we can pretend like trying to get like that foursome back together, but just swapping out a piece and thinking it's all gonna be fine.
Yeah, pulling him away from his family to live a secret so that he can be happy.
Yeah. So this man has like a wife that he does love, not in the same way that he loves Harry, not in that particular like sort of
romantic way, or
fully romance swept away on the top of a cliff type way, but he does have strong feelings of love for his wife, and he has a child who he adores more than anything, which Harry should understand.
Yeah,
but he doesn't seem to. which is like why like Harry seems to be a little bit more like selfish at times.
Yeah.
And also it might be because he's like been drinking 20 million times a day, which is like talking about it now. Harry is not like the best. He's a good guy, but he's not a good person.
Yeah,
after he loses John. It's just sort of like, because he sort of seems like the type of person who's like, I've lost my like. He seems like the type of person who doesn't like himself and being alone with himself. Just like, I've lost my person, I've lost my other half, I've lost my reason to be. And when he thinks so he's like, well, I can't be with myself, I'm just going to numb everything. But when he finds someone who he's like, you're my other half, I found another other half. I can go back to being like, revert back to the time where he was the happiest without considering this other person. Because it worked for him and John, because there wasn't 20,000 other factors to bring into it. But it's sort of like, I don't know, just thinking about it, it's like,
I mean, I don't blame Harry for wanting that, but
it can lead on quite nicely to another point, which is the family with Celia, John, Harry and Cameron. We've already been like discussing it and things like that. Obviously it's like the four of them, and they're all like, I can't remember the way around. Nori, you'll probably be able to tell me. So is a beard the male friend of a lesbian, or the female friend of a gay? I can't remember which way around it is.
It's both. It can be either. It's just a beard is someone who is a partner of a gay person, whether they're gay or lesbian, who is the straight presenting partner, so that they don't have to come out, but they can still sort of like, they can delay that. Or in this case, they can still have their partner, but not in a public way.
It's a fake partner to hide one's real partner, basically. So I just wanted to talk about the fact that this is a family of 4 kids, basically, and the fact that they are all hiding the fact that they are very homosexual together, rather than very heterosexual. And I just wanted to discuss, like, obviously Stonewall happens during that time in New York when they are all living together, and that's where Pride comes from. It comes from a riot, from the Stonewall riots, and how that impacted the relationship, because Evelyn didn't want to actively get involved and be down there, whereas Celia was just like, we need to be down there, we need to be doing this. And Evelyn immediately is just like, no. And it takes the boys actually saying, it's better if we're not down there, for Celia to actually listen and realize that they can do it in less obvious ways. They can donate to charities, they can help that way. They don't have to be on the front line, as it were. So I just kind of wanted to discuss calming influences of Harry and John, and maybe is John's death is obviously like a catalyst for things really falling apart for everybody, for Celia, for Harry, for Evelyn, for everyone. But it's also a catalyst for like the family just breaking apart, and maybe even for Evelyn and Celia's like second crashing down in flames. So
it's like, also seems like particularly John was probably thinking, if we go down there, we're gonna, I think he says, like, one of them says, we're gonna distract attention from the issues because we're there, and all people are going to talk about is that we're there, not the actual issues. And it's like, this is a very smart man who does not think of like himself, whereas for like Evelyn is very much like, no, we can't be seen anywhere near this issue because then they might know and that will destroy everything. Whereas Celia is like, it's like, could be thinking, it's like, now's the time we can all like go out and help, and then it'll be all fine because we've all stood up and said we're this, and everyone's going to be going like, yeah, we're cool with that now because this riot happened, hooray. Harry, I think, is more erring on the side of where Evelyn is, but John is very much like, okay, everyone, all of you actors, all of you Hollywood people, shut the front face doors and listen to some goodness dang reason.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, he just seemed like he's like the cornerstone of this foursome that's like brings them back together to a point where like they can discuss things rationally and reasonably, which with Evelyn's directness, Celia's sort of like flighty temper, and Harry being a little bit more selfish than most people. John is just sort of like okay, you'll have these native, but everyone shushums for a minute, and we can do something about this without going 1,000%. Because also John is a football player, American football, so he's used to being part of a team.
Yeah, exactly.
That has a plan, that does things in a set way. It's not like he is never the star. He's never the one front and center taking all the attention. Whereas these two ladies particularly are like, but we're the stars.
Yeah, but it's interesting you say that as well, because he's a quarterback, isn't he? Which is like star player, quote unquote.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about it, but
American team cliche.
Yeah, it's still the team ideology in a way. Whereas with actors, although they work with a team and they have to work as a team on each film, you know, that doesn't mean the star player of the film is going to work with the team, if that makes sense. Like, it's a different dynamic. So yeah, I think I was going to mention John not being an actor as well, and I think you've kind of said what I was going to say. Like, they need someone who's outside of the loop in a way, and that definitely it settles a lot of problems. And
I think Harry's also like a producer, so he can see things from like lots of different angles. So he might be like worrying about everything from like 20 different sides. Whereas Celia and Evelyn are sort of like more focused on themselves and each other. Yeah. It's like very much like a sports thing where it's like you're a part of the team. It's like you might be the quarterback, but without this running back, you would be nothing. Or without this guy who does the push stuff. Yeah. Can you tell that I am not a sports person?
American football.
I don't know anything about it, so
American football confuses me greatly.
I think it does. The ideology, Evelyn's kind of that doesn't really leave. So later on, when John's died and everything, that doesn't really leave Evelyn, does it? Because she's with Connor talking to Connor on the phone, and she's like, "Why don't we go for breakfast at wherever this place?" And then Connor's like, "But it's so uncool," and Evelyn's like, "Well, if I go there, it will be cool." And then she talks to her dad, and she talks to Harry, and he's like, "Well, your mother has a point. If her being somewhere does, raise its importance." So I think that never. I like that that's carried on, because it's not even her being arrogant. It's just true. Yeah. Like, unfortunately, if famous people and people that idealize them they have this power, and you are gonna hang around at the Warner Brothers studios just in case Tom Felton shows up. It's that kind of thing, and it's I like that it's carried on, because they are right, aren't they? It's John that says that if you all go down there, you're going to steal attention. Does John say that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's quite nice that Evelyn's. I don't know if she's taken that pearl of wisdom from him, but it's nice that she's carrying on his thought process. And maybe that shows a little bit of how he impacted her. I don't know, but I could have made that up completely. But yes, I think it does take. They work. They're not even dysfunctional family, are they? They're just a family, and he is kind of the guiding light, where he's very logical, and he says, we can't go down there because you are going to steal the attention, and you're going to completely eradicate the reasons that they're down there. So yes.
To be fair to the group, they are actually quite functional.
Yeah.
So
I think like every
they are very functional.
In like every family and friend group you see, there's always that one person where if that person suddenly disappeared, or like they suddenly died, that group would just disintegrate without them. Whereas if you took out one of the other 3 players, that group wouldn't necessarily like completely shatter. It wouldn't work the same, but it would still carry on working as well as it can.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see. The only last point I've got we haven't really talked about is like the pressures of LGBTQ plus love in the 60s through 80s and not being able to be out and how that impacts a relationship, the pressures of being movie stars, and the fact that later on there is a reference made to Elton John.
Yeah.
And how he is out and proud and in the 80s, and someone says he was never not out and proud. And I just wanted to maybe get your thoughts on what that kind of means. The fact that there are no references to actual celebs that actually existed really throughout this whole book, and then just suddenly Elton John.
Well, when you have the opportunity to mention Elton John, you mention Elton John.
My thoughts exactly, but no, I think it's an interesting point because, yeah, I suppose in this world it's like all about Hollywood.
And I suppose you can't really intermingle these fictional people into, say, like she was with Marilyn Monroe here,
Exactly.
she was with X, Y, and Z here, and things
yeah,
like that.
I think with this it's more taking things from reality and placing it in a fictional way. Like it's not a fictional world, but it's a fictional version of our world with some references, you know, to other things that actually happened. So like, you know, there could have been other references to other people who aren't actually in the book. So like Elton John, they could have had like Queen, you know, like Freddie
Mercury.
Yeah. David Bowie even. I mean, I know like people were sort of like
George Michael.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
my goodness, I love George Michael.
Yeah, so there could have been, but I feel like a lot of those people, I mean, they're musicians, and I feel like it's easier to express that, you know, yourself in what are my words in that way as a musician in some ways than it is as an, or at least at the time, as an actor. Does that kind of make sense? Like, I feel like if you look at the music and the way they were performing on stage, like Elton John was wearing those flamboyant costumes, which I mean, I love that. But at the time, you know, people probably would have looked at him like, what on earth is this guy doing? Like, why does he want to, you know, look like that? Whereas now, I think people are more like, oh, cool, okay. Like, you can look at Harry Styles.
I was just going to say about Harry Styles.
Someone I was working with a few weeks ago, she was trying to think of someone who's considered stylish because she was talking about like fashion or something in her class. And I was like, well, what about Harry Styles? And, you know, she was like, well, yeah, also a lot of his outfits are quite out there and quite like, I don't agree with this, but she said it was quite camp in some ways. And I was like, I mean, okay. But a lot of because of where our students are from culturally, a lot of them don't all agree with LGBTQ things. So it's kind of like siding on like caution more, you know, with who well, not we, but I wasn't doing this lesson, but who she was picking as these celebrities to show as stylish or what. Anyway, but I think it's a good point because I think nowadays fashion is much more like fluid, I suppose. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, it's just a thing. Well, it's not that, I don't know.
Harry Styles wore a dress on the cover. Was it Vogue? Cover of Vogue, and that caused uproar.
Yeah,
it's like, oh,
he's wearing a dress. It's like,
so
it's a piece of fabric covering his nakedness. What more?
And you can say, yeah, I was gonna say a lot of people will, you know, people in the fashion world will be like, it's art. Who cares? It's art. It's not.
If you put like I can't think of a female celebrity.
Any celebrity?
Scarlett Johansson wearing an awesomely tailored suit.
Yes, if you put her on the front of Vogue, no one would have batted an eyelid if she was wearing a suit. You know,
exactly.
Like, but because Harry Styles was wearing a dress, it was like, oh, please.
Yeah.
But I remember when Dan Howell came out like a few years back, and he had in his video, he was talking about like identification and things like that. And he said some of the people that I look up to most, Harry Styles and someone else, like don't see gender as a fixed thing, and like Harry uses multiple pronouns in song lyrics and things like that, and doesn't really see it as a fixed thing. And obviously, like that leads into like the fashion stuff. And can we just say Harry Styles is like?
Oh, I love Harry Styles.
I breathed his air but a month ago. Just throwing it out there.
Love it.
I'm jealous.
Should be.
It's something that is so important, I think, especially for like youth and queer youth especially, but just even straight ally youth today to see something like that with such a big following doing this sort of stuff. And I think that's what Evelyn wanted and obviously Celia wanted, but they weren't allowed to have because of the society that they are living in. It's very, very traditional values, man and woman, and very white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And at one point, she does say that that's what a role she's playing. She's playing a wasp, and especially in America, it is very backwards even today in regard to these sorts of things. All the anti-LGBTQ plus laws being passed with schools and clothing bans and things like that as well. It's ridiculous. And this fight is definitely not over. The day that we that Pride stopped being a riot is the day that we don't need it anymore, which will only ever treated equally. Which I hate to say, that will never happen. So we will always need Pride.
Yeah, but in a way, it's thinking of it as like a marathon rather than a sprint, isn't it? Like you have to keep up the momentum and keep the pace, and like, you know, just keep doing it. But,
like literally, like 3 or 4 years ago, non-binary wasn't a term that like people knew.
Yeah,
like it's like myself, for example, it was only around 2020 that I was like, I think I might be this word I've only heard a couple times. I've Googled it. It seems to fit. Yeah.
But it's interesting you say that, because I mean I agree. I mean I have a lot of friends now who are in teaching, and one was saying, I think she tweeted something about how, like, comparing when she was at school. I mean, she's like my age, so I guess when we were all at school, I mean, I didn't know anyone who was like out in any form, whether it was like being gay or lesbian or like transgender or non-binary, you know, anything at all. I didn't know anyone in my school. But now sometimes people come up on Facebook, like, who I wasn't really friends with, but I see them as a suggested friend, and like they've, you know, then their name has changed. They've, you know, obviously come out as maybe non-binary or transgender, or I don't really know, because I wasn't friends with them personally. But, you know, just seeing that now, like, people feel more comfortable. And my friend was saying her students, you know, she teaches secondary, so many more of her students are out in some way compared to 10 years ago, which and she was like, it's a good thing. Like, obviously, like, people feel comfortable, and this next sort of generation of people do feel comfortable to do that. And I really hope there's less bullying in terms of, like, you know, saying "ha, gay," like as a insult. You know, like, I haven't really heard that personally since even when I was at school. It wasn't. I heard it sometimes, but not that often. So I hope that's kind of in the past, and like people can kind of just carry on as they should. But anyway, I don't know what else is going to that.
Similarly to Loveless, which we read last year, Georgia hadn't heard of asexuality, had she, when she went to Durham?
Or aromanticism.
Yeah, and that was really refreshing to read that and be like, okay, well, because I think there's one of the big things with everything that's happening now with Pride and that kind of thing is that people are more accepting of not ignorance, but of people not understanding. Like, I know that I could ask Jess or Nori if I don't understand something and I just want it to be explained. Yeah, I know that I could comfortably go to both of them and be like, can you please explain what this means? Because I don't want. Do you know what I mean? And I think
I will happily pull out my PowerPoint presentation.
I think it kind of, I mean, let's not get into let's not get into this side of it, but it's similarly with religion. If you aren't shoving it down people's throats and telling people that what they should and shouldn't believe, then it's a whole different conversation. And I think even with the Black Lives Matter movement, it's about education, and it's okay to not understand. Ignorance, I mean, it depends how you view it, in the sense of, are you ignorant and wanting to change that? Are you ignorant and happy to stay that because it means that you stay out of trouble? And
it's
I think
kind of like an actions speaking louder than words situation. You know, you
Yeah.
can say like, you can say one thing and do another. You know, so if you're actually
Yeah.
going to actively learn about something that you don't know about, then great, go for it. Ask you know, ask your friends or Google it or whatever. But if you just say like, oh, I'm not homophobic, but you know, or whatever.
I'm not homophobic, but yeah.
You know, it's
And I'm trying to find the line in here, and I can't find it.
It's like that, not to be mean, but, and it's
Yeah.
like, but you're going to be mean, so it's like not to be racist, but not to be
racist,
but.
Also, that's a little thing that I've experienced. If you're going to ask someone questions, whether they're non-binary or gay or asexual, don't then interrupt them while they're talking to you, because that has happened to me on multiple occasions with my family.
Also, I've had when I've been talking about asexuality and they go, wait, so what? And I'm just like, oh, well, you do realize there's a difference between sexual attraction and like romantic attraction. And they're just like, what? And they get really awkward because I go into it and they're the ones asking the questions. I'm going to give you a brutally honest answer. If you ask me the questions, I'm going to answer them. And it's just like, people get awkward about it. And it's just like, well, you wanted to know, like.
Yeah.
There's a really good line in this. I can't find it, but it's where modern day Evelyn and Monique are talking, and she goes,
the section where Monique goes like, "Are you okay coming out as a gay woman?"
Yeah, she's like, "I'm not gay. I'm bisexual.
I'm not a gay woman. I'm bisexual."
Yeah, and she's like, "I feel really bad that I just immediately assumed that she was gay. I just can't find it."
Yeah, I know the part you mean. I think it was a very important thing to have in the book, because I think people do just assume that they can say one thing as like an umbrella term, when actually that's, you know, unless the person you're talking to has specifically said that's okay.
Eye erasure is such a major thing, because you get people who are bisexual who are in straight presenting relationships, and people go, "Oh, you're straight," and it's like, "No, I'm bi." You get them in homosexual presenting relationships, it's like, "Oh, you're gay." "No, I'm bi." You get someone who, for instance, is female presenting, has only ever dated men. "You're not bi, you're straight," and it's like, no, definitely bisexual. I know I'm bisexual. So it's like,
well, Max, really, what's his face is like that as well, isn't he? Is it Max?
Max Gerard.
When he's like, "So you're not gay," and it's like, no, she's like, and uses the word that we're not going to use, but you know, he says, "But so you're not gay," and she's like, "Well, no," but she's like, and he can't quite see the difference between the two. And I think, not to throw Heartstopper around, but I'm gonna. Spoilers for that too. If you haven't watched it, if you haven't, what are you doing?
Spoiler for episode
8. When Nick comes out to his mum and he's like, "It's called bisexuality. Have you heard of it?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Of course I've heard of it. Like I wasn't born yet." You know, that kind of thing. And I think that was quite a nice thing, because I think that is part of it, isn't it? It's like there's so many. There are loads and you can't. I don't think you can be angry at everybody because who don't know everything, because there are so many different terms being brought into the limelight now, and people aren't aware of them because they weren't there a year ago. You know?
I mean, I know I still make mistakes sometimes, and you know, it is about trying to catch yourself and just being like aware. I guess that's the main thing, is just being aware. Like, and I'm more than happy for someone to correct me if I make a mistake sometimes, or like, you know, but.
It's like, for instance, if you misgender someone for accidentally, if they're male presenting but they are non-binary, and you say he, and you go, "Oh, I'm sorry," and you correct, like, as long as you're not doing it maliciously and going, I refuse to accept your identity, it's okay if you make mistakes and you acknowledge that you make mistakes.
Yeah, and I think that's what people are scared of, is being in an awkward situation, so they just kind of don't want to do anything. It's almost like a fight or flight in a way, you know, like
from the side of a non-binary person, having someone say she but then correct it to they, that makes me so happy, because in quite a lot of my life still people assume, and I feel awkward going, actually it's this, because I'm like, I don't want to get into that debate right now, I just want to buy some crisps.
I mean,
I'm just restocking the popcorn. Please leave me alone.
when we were in Stratford and everyone was saying hi ladies and I'm just sat there fuming, but I'm like, I'm not going to jump in front of this, and like if Nori's like it's your identity, I'm not going to like jump in front of you and go, actually no, you got it wrong.
That is one of my pet peeves when people say thank you but then add a gendered, it's like a gendered honorific, so they're being polite, but it's like you didn't need to add the second half of that sentence.
I mean, as a teacher, I'm trying to like be aware, because I often would say, all right guys, because my entire life I've said guys as like a plural form of friends or whoever, but I try and say other words like folks or just, all right, listen, you don't even need to say anything, you know. So it's definitely something you have to think about a lot when you're so used to saying one thing as to a group of people, whether it's ladies, gentlemen, guys, whatever.
Guys,
like
binary pals.
Yeah. A classic.
I think it's so strong, the fact that Evelyn Hugo is really painted as the stereotypical Barbie. You know, she's the sexualized image that you expect to be the straight man eating woman, you know, and I think that, so it's quite interesting that she's actually more complicated than that. I think it's also, you know, Jess.
Oh no, I was going to say, and there's anyone who played with Barbies know, you didn't stay straight for very long. And if there's that scene in the movie, there's something wrong.
I like the fact that on both, I mean, I've only got this cover, but I think the Goodreads cover is different. But I don't think you ever see you don't see above Evelyn's lips, and it's like everything that's important are her assets. Her brain, as everything else, is everything that makes her is gone. You can't see it. I mean, you can see it on the back, but then you can't see it. You know?
Blonde as well, you know, so you can see like, oh, she's a blonde woman. Oh, she's got red lips. Oh, she's
It's like her eyes aren't on show.
Me, like the Evelyn on that cover doesn't look like the Evelyn in my mind, because like it said that Evelyn was quite well endowed in the chest area, whereas
that's the point, isn't it? She's not
model
isn't.
But it's like because she says like I was sort of like quite twig thin and like didn't have much hip, which was at the time, but I was very chesty. That's the word I'm using for it.
I mean, to be fair, it's not a very big hugging dress, so it kind of goes out, goes down. So
who knows?
I want that dress. Do you reckon her auction is actually a real thing? Because I would buy one.
Maybe. Although it was 2017, so I reckon you've missed your chance.
I'm sure there's one more left.
It does make me want to get one of those robes that are called like dead husband robes. Which are like the really sort of like sheer ones with like either big loads of feathers around the edges or ruffles. I'd get one of the ruffle ones, because apparently the feathers shed quite a lot. But it's like one of those old Hollywood glamour robes, but extra.
Yeah.
You've got a dead husband. You've just married him. And now you're sipping martinis.
By the pool, by the beach, in your robe.
I think we'll wrap it up here, because we're going.
No, we're not going to wrap it up.
No, we could go on forever. I only because I just do want to talk a little bit about. Obviously, we talked about Dawn and the other husbands. I do actually want to talk about her relationship with Rex North.
Ooh.
Yes.
So I actually have a point I want to mention, but after.
Because I did like, I mean, I feel bad for Ernie, but I quite like that he's wrapped up quite quickly. It's like he went on to have 8 kids. He was great. But I just really liked Rex, and it says clever Rex North. That's how she opens it, and I think I quite liked that their relationship. That's what I said at the beginning. It's sad. I mean, I don't feel like this needed it, but it would be an interesting, different story if like she'd ended up, whether she went back to Rex or she actually did fall in love with Rex, and like that would have, I feel like they would have been a proper power duo. But I just really liked their relationship because it was so understanding, it was so supportive, and I think it was even respectful, and it was just, I think, then even sadder the fact that when they had to hide their divorce with affairs and made them point out to be both bad people, and she couldn't go and hug him and be happy for him at the award ceremony. And I just really liked their relationship because and he tries his luck because they're drunk and because they are married and whatever, but you know, she says no and he's like okay. And he leaves. And I really like that because in that time when she's been such a sexualized image, you know, she gets in, you know, she knows she has to kind of sleep our way to the top to get into it, and she does it underage, and people only are interested in her because of her boobs and because of her sexuality. And I think that's shown at the beginning with that guy in the dime store, the 5 and dime store, whatever his name, the guy, I've forgotten his name, is it George or something?
Yeah.
What is it? It's in the back. Billy.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
You know, he just wants to like use or abuse her sexuality and stuff. And Max Gerard's the same. You know, she's just a sex symbol to them that they want to have on their arm. And they're going to constantly try it because they want to be the one that bedded Evelyn Hugo. Whereas Rex is actually married to her and they have a good relationship. And he tries it, she says no, and he's like, okay.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, she plays out the other scenario. She's like, I could do this, and then I'll wake up in the morning with this reaction, everything will change, because she knows what it's like. She knows what being just sleeping with someone. She's like, he'll wake up in the morning and he'll walk away, and that'll be it, and it won't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So I really liked him and their relationship because he wasn't abusive, he wasn't an idiot, he wasn't using her for personal gain. I mean, they kind of were, but they were both on a mutual page about it.
Yeah.
You know, he was so understanding when they're talking about like their living arrangements, and then, you know, you see there is that still a sexual attraction between the two of them because he wants to sleep with her. But he respects her as a woman, and I think I think that relationship is a good one. I would have liked to have explored that a little more, or it would have been hella cute if they ended up falling in love. But you know,
hearing you talk about it, I think he's now my second favourite husband. It goes to the last one, Mr. Jameson, him.
Oh yeah, he's sweet.
Harry.
Yeah, I liked him, Robert, because he's nice to Connor.
Yeah, I like that with Rex. Like, he comes to Evelyn and is just like, I'm in love with this woman. Yes, we made an oopsie and it will be here in 9 months. But
this is the situation.
It's
and she's so happy for him.
Yeah, he actively is in love, and they both are so like reconciliatory with each other, and it's just like, we'll work this out, we'll do this, we'll do that. And
it's funny because, like I said earlier, she does not have that kind of communication with Celia, or at least Celia doesn't understand her way of thinking. But with all of her other husbands, not all of them, but like with Rex, for example, she sets it out from the beginning and it's fine, like it does work. So it's interesting that it doesn't work.
The love of life doesn't get to her. And
who was the actress that Rex ends up with? What?
Joy Nathan or something like that.
Yeah.
Is she one of the other ones from Little Women?
I don't think so. I think she's just she's just another. I think she's just another actress that she knows. I think might be wrong.
Because my brain was like, was she one of the other ones from the Little Women? Because it's like you've got Evelyn, you've got Celia, you've got Ruby, who goes on to marry John, and then they break up because he was still abusive and horrible. And then there was another one, but I don't think they mentioned her.
Could have been Joy.
I think maybe it was.
There was a Joan, but Celia gets with her later.
Yeah, no, it was Joy, I think.
Is it Joy?
Yeah.
I liked it. I think he was just a stand-up guy, and I liked it, and I liked their relationship and their friendship. And I just think it's sad that, you know, even afterwards she's like, I can't go up and run and hug him and tell him how happy I am for him that he's in love and got a child. I think that's just really sad. I think it's the whole thing about this is just really sad that she can't be who she wants to be. She spends her life she sold her soul to become an actress, and then she ends up being an actress both personally and professionally. And I think that's just really,
that is the hot take.
Yeah.
That is the hot take we'll be ending this stream on.
Wait, I have one more question. Sorry. It's kind of just your opinions. Hopefully it won't take long. Just because it's been on my mind, and I think it might link to pacing maybe, because some people mentioned that at the start. I don't know if this book was written just as Evelyn Hugo's autobiography, quote unquote, without Monique. How different do you think that would be? Because part of me was like, I feel like Monique doesn't need to be there, but I see why she's there. Does that make sense? Like, what do you think?
Yeah,
I think it would.
The connection is shoehorned in.
Personally, I think it would miss something if Monique wasn't there and that side of it wasn't there. Mainly because you get the bit of her going, like, the bit about, no, I'm bisexual, the sort of, like, those little moments that are just pure gold dust. You know, gorgeous.
And also, like, bouncing off of that is Monique realizing her worth in her failing marriage with David, and the fact that it wasn't that she failed, it was just that the marriage just wasn't working, so it doesn't make you a failure.
Oh, I also remembered how much I disliked David. He took the coffee table.
He gave it back.
Need it.
I was scared that he was gaslighting, and I actually have an orange tab going, gaslighting! Oh, no, wait, he's not gaslighting her. It's all right. It's okay.
I think Monique is the contemporary take on a historical Evelyn. And she's so, like, you know, she questions, it's 2017, so modern day, you know, and she's learning about all of this, and you're seeing her attitudes to Evelyn and her sexuality and everything that happened. And obviously she's so comfortable to talk to Monique and tell her everything.
Yeah.
And it shows, I mean, I know we have a hell of a long way to go, but it shows how opinions and everything have changed on that and that thing. And I think I don't necessarily see, it's a different conversation, but obviously the relationship with Harry and Monique's dad, I'm not sure I necessarily felt like that needed to be in there as well. I'm a bit like, why couldn't Monique's family have just been a happy, wonderful family, which they were.
Yeah,
I'm not suggesting not, but I don't.
Well, why did there have to be a connection in the first place? Why couldn't she have just read her article and gone, I like her?
Yeah. I suppose that maybe they felt like there had to be something, like, why is she giving an interview now? Oh, there has to be some kind of catalyst, or something has to happen, and it has to be dramatic, and it has to, you know, but it does, I don't know, it doesn't have to be like that, I guess. I don't know.
You see a lot more of Evelyn's good traits, I think, through Monique, because you see how she affects and impacts Monique's life with David and everything. And I think you start to see a little more of a wise side of Evelyn and a little nice side of her. Nori, you had your hand up.
Just one tiny thing. So I remember us talking about how if we set this story in the modern day, how that would work. And I think it would work if it was still set in America, but with conservative political newscasters and political influencers sort of leaning heavily into that side of things, like religious political people. If it was like, if we were modernizing it, it would have to be set in sort of that realm, because it being set in Hollywood, it's a lot more liberal in Hollywood now. Most people are very okay with, like, if this famous actress has a lady friend, that will get you 10 times more press for this movie.
Yeah, Rebel Wilson having just come out, and Elliot Page transitioning and things like that.
Also, mentioning Elliot Page, one of the finest human beings I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, also speaking of, I want to start watching the Umbrella Academy because I haven't seen any of it, so
I need to watch it.
I need to watch season 3.
But we digress.
We digress. Point of this book is go support Elliot Page. And
yeah.
I think
and on that,
just tuning in now.
Evelyn is a tortured soul, and I think she stands for a lot.
Both professionally and in her day-to-day life.
Professionally and personally, an actress.
Anyway.
So yes, that was our June book club discussion for of Evelyn Hugo.
I even tabbed it while we were talking.
Me too. All their
Random.
hobbies.
Yeah. For future reference, anyway.
I can definitely see myself rereading this and trying to pick up on stuff that I didn't pick up on the first time around. I think it is definitely a book that I will reread, and I'm glad that I bought my own copy rather than thinking about the library.
And I think Jess and Zoe, because I don't think you've read it, you should also read Daisy Jones and the Six, just because it's a very, very
I definitely enjoyed Taylor Jenkins-Reid writing. I enjoyed her writing style. I really, really enjoyed it. Even though it's lit fic, it's easy to read. Because
Daisy Jones is very different. It's like an interview, but it feels like you're reading a script. So I like that. A lot of people find that a bit jarring. I like to get into and
audiobook.
Yeah, I've heard
every single character has a different voice actor.
Yeah,
and it's incredible.
Yeah,
I need to listen to that because that's what I want to do with my book. So
yeah,
just see. Anyway, our July book club pick, we randomized it at the start of this stream. If you haven't watched it, there you go. You can go back and rewatch it. Our randomizer book club pick for July was Mariette's pick, which is The Woman Next Door by Omotosu. I think that's how you pronounce it. I am just now ordering it from Waterstones, not sponsored, because my library is currently out of action. And then our August book club pick, Janet, this is your third choice.
I'm gonna cover. I should have closed the window curtain. City of Brass, essay track reporting.
Yep. It's the first in a trilogy.
It's the first in a trilogy, yes. And apparently it's dazzlingly magical and still utterly believable. So there we go.
Wind and spirits and all sorts. 18th century Cairo, Ottoman nobles.
I feel like it's definitely not out of my comfort zone because it's a bit mix of historical and fantasy, and I like both. So, yay me!
Well, yeah, those are all the other books anyway in August.
So
I'm going to read all the other books we put for things in August anyway because I have those 3.
Yeah, so August picks will be the book club selections or something.
I'm still definitely going to hold this back for another book club pick because I think it could be really, really good. But yeah, so those are our 2 book club picks going forward. The Woman Next Door and City of Brass. So they will go into the list of books that we're reading for 2022 that's always in the description of our live shows. So if in doubt, always check those. Thank you, everybody, for this amazing discussion. It's been really good fun. So
longest one so far.
I think we've done about an hour and a half just solidly talking about Evelyn Hugo, maybe 4, and just a little bit about like the book club picks going forward. So yeah, it's been really good fun. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We will see you again next month for The Woman Next Door. And yeah, stay safe, and we will see you all very soon. Bye.